Rev students, how is it going? Anyone excited about 2021? Had you there for a second. I know we're not in 2020 anymore. How was everyone's New Year's? Great, I hope. So many people did it. Who stayed up to New Year's and watched something? Half the room? Everyone else kind of was like, hey, if I go to sleep faster, the year will be over faster. I see what you guys are doing. I see where your heads are at. Well, hey, I am excited. If I don't already know you, my name is Jeremy. I'm our student pastor for our Jasper campus here, and we are kicking off a brand new series called Still Hangry. And if you weren't here with us last year, that's probably going to be really weird. So they talked a little bit about it earlier. I'm going to be setting up the idea for you for what we're going to be doing for the month of January. But man, I just want you to know I'm so excited that you guys are here. And I'm so excited about what I believe God is going to do. And I'm not sure about y'all, but I get excited about the new year. Right? Like I get excited. There's something about the new year. Like there's all this hope and expectation that something new is just, we're on the bridge of something new. Something might be happening. We're just about to be there. And there's this sense of hope and angst that God might just do something. And maybe that's where you're at, right? Maybe you're like, hey, this is the year that all my plans and dreams are going to happen, right? Like this is the year where my situation is going to change. This is the year where maybe I'm going to start working out more, right? Like maybe some of you have made some New Year's resolutions. As we talked earlier, the most made New Year resolution is to exercise more. Maybe for you it was that hey, I'm just ready for something new, for no more people just getting sick, no more dealing with, just what's going on in the world. I'm ready for things just to get better. And we all have this expectation, we all have this hope that because it's a new year, that something might just change. And maybe for you, you've set some New Year's resolutions, right? Maybe it is to exercise. Maybe for you, you're like, this year I'm going to be a little bit better. I'm only going to do 10 TikTok dance videos, not 20 TikTok dance videos. Or maybe for you, it's the opposite. It's like this year, instead of 20 TikTok dance videos, it's going to be 40 TikTok dance. You're setting a big goal for yourself there. And I'm not sure what kind of resolutions you might have set or goals you might have set of yourself. Maybe this year you're saying, man, I just need God to show up this year. Maybe this year is the year I'm going to be reading my Bible more. Maybe this year is the year that God responds to me in prayer. Maybe this is the year that the thing that I've been hoping and praying for, that God shows up and does something about it. But at the end of the day, we're saying, man, this might be the year that God shows up. This might be the year that he does something in my family. This might be the year that he does something in my friend group. This might be the year that he does something in my relationship. Whatever it is, that this might be the year that we are hoping and expecting God to show up. And if you were here with us last year in January, you probably heard a message similar to this, talking about, the new year and why we're going to be fasting, why we're about to start this 21 days of prayer and fasting and Bible study starting next Monday. And here is very similar to what I said last year, if you remember. But some of you have walked in here today, and if you think about last year and the first Rev students of the year, you said, hey, this is what this year is going to look like. This is what I'm hoping for. This is what I'm expecting. And if you were honest right now, that hasn't happened. If you were honest right now, and it might be, coronavirus happened and it just screwed everything up, right? Man, I just got so busy with this and that and school and everything started changing and I just couldn't do it, whatever it was. And here is what I'm going to say, which is the same thing I said last year, students. That good intentions only get you so far. Good intentions have a short shelf life. And maybe, just maybe, the only thing that will keep you walking into a service just like this in 2022, and things in your life have changed the way that you wanted them to, is a decision that you might make today. A decision that you might make today about how you're going to engage with God in a different way. You know, we're in this series called Still Hangry, and when we knew we were going to be doing a fast, and it's kind of, you know, a pun. A lot of us, we're going to be asking you to fast some type of food, so some of you might literally be hangry, like you're going to show up next Wednesday and you're just going to be like, right? Like you are hungry and you are angry, therefore hangry, right? And I'm not sure, I'm going to help you guys out. Like there's this thing, like when especially I'm going to speak to my fellows for a second, all right? So ladies, don't tune me out, but I'm going to speak to my fellows. At some point in time, you are going to take a girl out on a date, right? And when you take said girl out on a date, you're going to ask her a question. And that question is going to be, where do you want to eat at? Now, this is a loaded question, right? There is years and years of conflict surrounding this question. Here, I'm going to help you out. I have cracked the code, and I have figured out the secret, because she's probably hangry, right? She probably wants some food in this moment. Like, you might not know this, but, like, girls love food. Am I right, girls? Snacks, food. Like, if I just had a fruit snack right here, would you, like, fight me for it? I don't have one. I just knew you would. But so here, I've cracked the code, all right? This is what you do. You are going to ask her, you're going to tell her, hey, we're going out tonight, but it's a surprise, right? And this is what you do. The first place that she guesses, that's where you're going to take her, because that's the place she is most excited about and wanted to go. She just wanted you to think of it for her, and you did. And you're going to know that's not where we're going to go. That's exactly where you're going to pull up to. Surprise, that's where we were going to go all along. You're going to thank me for it later, fellas. Ladies, am I right? Am I right? I got some nods. Some of you are just confused. You're like, people buy you food? Why have I never experienced this before? It might happen, right? It might happen. Once these fellows start getting some jobs, things change. But I have figured out, for my wife, it is Chili's, right? Is there any Chili's fans in here? No? Me either. Praise the Lord. Listen, my wife loves Chili's so much, like when we go on vacation, her first craving is like, is there a Chili's around here? I was like, we can go, there is a Chili's everywhere. We can go to Chili's on a Monday. We can go to Chili's on a Tuesday. They're never closed. They're everywhere. Yet we're traveling the world, right? Like we're in New York City. She's like, I'm just going to look up where the next Chili's is. Like I am just feeling it, right? Like, no, like let's try somewhere local. Let's try somewhere, different, something we've never tried before. Nope. She just wants some Cajun chicken pasta from Chili's. If you've ever had it, it's good. But that is what hangry is, guys. And we're in this series called Still Hangry. And Snickers said it best. They said, you're not you when you're hungry. Would you guys agree? Like you are not you when you're hungry. And this is going to be the idea throughout this whole series. So lean in for a second, students. This week we're talking about fasting. Next week we're talking about prayer. In a couple of weeks we're talking about Bible studies. But lean in for a second. Listen to me, please. Just like when you're physically hungry, you're not the person that you could be. If you are spiritually hungry, if you are spiritually starved, you are not going to be able to be the person that God has called you to be. You're not going to be the person who God wants you to be, and you're not going to be able to be that person because there's nothing for you to bank on. There's no sustenance there. There is no food. You will literally be spiritually hangry. And so for the next month, I want you guys to lean in on this idea that if you would lean in, if you would give God a chance to show up and show off, that this year something might really change for you. And so we wanted to teach you this. This week we're talking about fasting. So I want to answer two questions for you. Why we fast and how we fast. So we're going to answer the first question first. And Jesus is actually going to be getting into a misunderstanding with some religious people. It happens very often, and it's quite funny. I've been prepping this message for a week or two now, and I happened to just get into a misunderstanding the other day. And if you know anything about my life, just things do not go well for me on a regular basis. So you are probably going to enjoy this. But I was trying to reach someone, is actually a student, and let me preface this. Misunderstandings won't happen if you put last names in your phone, right? Misunderstandings won't happen if you put last names in your phone. This is free. I am not charging for this advice, but it will change your life. So I text a person and say, hey, could you help me out with this? Could you do me a favor? Thinking it was actually one of our students. And this person responds back like, hey, yeah, I'm busy right now. Can I call you later? And they called me at like 11 o'clock at night. So I'm like, I'm not answering that. And so I said, hey, can we set up a time tomorrow? I just wanted to ask you a question. I had a favor to ask. And so they called me the next day. And like I thought their voice sounded off, but like, people sound different on the phone, right? People can sound different on the phone. And so I was like, hey, yeah, so this is the favor. I was just wondering if you could help me out with this. He's like, hey, man, I would love to, but I'm in Tennessee right now. I'm like, you're in Tennessee. Like, when'd you get up there? It's like, I was back in Atlanta, during, over the summer and stuff, but there wasn't enough work. So I went out to Tennessee. I'm like, man, this 16-year-old's hustling right now, right? He has to feed the wife and the kids, so he had to move states to provide for the family, and so he's out there working and hustling. I got respect, all right? I can dig that, and so, but I'm getting confused. I was like, man, I swear I saw you like a month ago, and it's like, I came back for a little bit. It might have been someone else. I'm just like, man, this is weird, but I guess we could figure something out, and I start to realize something's wrong. I'm like, hey, well, let me just let you go, and I'll follow back up with you. And he's like, all right, that's great. And so I look at my phone and I realize, I was like, this person doesn't have a last name in here. And I go look up something and I'm like, this is not this person's number. This is someone who I haven't talked to in like a year and a half. And it was a completely wrong person who does live in Tennessee. And so it was very unfortunate for me and embarrassing. And I texted him today. He's like, hey man, I thought you were someone else. I appreciate your willingness to help. Sorry if that was a super weird conversation. And he has not texted me back, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm not hurt. I'm a survivor, right? Like, we'll make things happen. But misunderstandings happen. Maybe you've been in a misunderstanding like that. But Jesus is about to get into a misunderstanding with some religious people. And what you're going to see here is that when he gets into a misunderstanding with religious people, that things kind of get weird pretty fast. And so one of the things that he's going to be talking about, and before we get there, I want to set this idea up for you, right? So before we get there, I want to set this idea up for you because their misunderstanding is about fasting. And so I want to define it for you, and then we're going to see what Jesus says to these people who are misunderstanding it a little bit. So we're going to say that fasting is creating space in our lives where we give up something good to grow in relationship with God. Fasting is creating space in our lives where we give up something good to grow in relationship with God. And so what we're saying in this moment, and I want to highlight the key word good there, that we would give up something good, right? So I'm not saying give up something bad. Like right now, I wouldn't say hey, you should give up drugs and fast, right? If you need, that would be obedience, right? And so if you need to give up drugs, be obedient to Jesus, do that. But what we're saying is that fasting is not the same thing as fighting sin in your life. If you're struggling with something, if something is going on, if you have hurts and pain, that is something different. And Jesus is calling us to look and live a certain way. But fasting is actually where we say, hey, this is something I love. This is something that is good. This is something that I enjoy. Yet in this moment, I'm saying Jesus is better. Yet in this moment, I'm willing to say, hey, I'm not going to do this so I have more time for Jesus. And whatever it is that you choose is a direct indicator of your value of Jesus. So what we're going to ask you to do is give up something that's important to you. Something that you spend a lot of time on, because the more important it is to you, the more important you're saying Jesus is to you. And so to say all that, we're going to jump into this misunderstanding in Matthew chapter 9, verse 14. It says, then the disciples of John came to him, saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? Jesus said to them, can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The day will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. No one puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Neither is new wine put into old wineskins. If it is, the skins burst, and the wine is spilled, and the skins are destroyed. But the new wine is put into fresh wineskins, so both are preserved. So we have this guy, these disciples here of John the Baptist. John the Baptist is actually the guy that baptizes Jesus. That's where he got this title from. And he was actually saying, hey, there's someone coming. There's this guy named Jesus. He's going to be coming. He's going to be great. And at this point, some of his disciples see Jesus' disciples not fasting, and they're coming and asking a question. They're like, hey, why aren't you doing this? I kind of picture this if you've played sports, there's time where maybe I'm out there and I'm warming up, but then I see everyone else doing drills. I'm like, Like, did I miss something? Like, was I not invited to the drills? Like, did they ask us to do drills and I didn't hear them? Therefore, like, I'm supposed to be over there. Am I doing something wrong right now? And so that's kind of how I picture what's going on right here. They're seeing some people doing it, some people not. So they're figuring it out. And what Jesus is going to be teaching them here is he uses this idea about the bride and groom, right? Like, hey, there's this big wedding, right? And there's a bride and the groom, and there's these groom's friends, and Jesus is setting himself up. He's the groom of the story, and he says, hey, at my wedding, my friends aren't going to be missing me, right? They are going to be having a great time. They're going to be celebrating. There's going to be dancing. There's going to be great food. There's going to be cake. Like, we're going to have a conga line. Like, it's going to be amazing, right? It is going to be absolutely great. But later, there's going to be a time. Like, I'm going to get married, right? In this story, this parable he's telling, he's like, this groom is going to get married. They're going to go on a honeymoon. They're going to go work their jobs, get a house, right? Like, they might have some kids, and as time goes on, they're going to become more and more distant, and the friends are going to miss him. And he's saying, hey, my disciples are with me right now. Therefore, they have no reason to miss me. Like, they are experiencing the fullness of me right now. But there is going to be a time later when I am no longer here, and that is the time that they will need to fast. Because the thing that he's saying is, hey, there's no need for them to fast. I'm right here. But there's going to be a time later, and maybe that's the time that you're in right now, where God feels distant, where your problems and your struggles feel bigger than you can handle. And you would say, hey, I need someone bigger, I need someone stronger, I need someone more powerful than myself to make their presence known to me, to be close to me in this moment. He's saying, hey, that is the time where you can fast, where you can be in my presence, where you can draw close to me. And the religious people, they just wanted to follow the rules. They were like, hey, this is how you fast, this is what you do. And this is the warning that he's giving in this moment. He's saying, don't prioritize practice over presence. Don't prioritize practice over presence. You see, they were just focusing on the practice of fasting. This is how you do it. And they missed out on the point altogether, that they would be able to be in Jesus' presence, that they would draw closer to him in those moments, that when things were hard and when things were rough, that he would be so real and so near to them. And maybe you're saying, man, I haven't experienced that before. And my question to you, have you tried fasting? Because what he's saying right here is if you feel like he's distant, if you feel like he's far away, if you feel like his help is not available to you, he's saying, I have given you a way for me to draw close to you in those moments, and through the practice of fasting. You know, he starts communicating about old wineskins and new wine and old clothes and new clothes. And what he is saying there is he's saying, hey, there are going to be experiences that you're going to face, right? Like there's going to be a new virus one day, right? There is going to be a new political division one day. There's going to be more divisiveness one day. There is going to be more war one day. There's going to be a tragedy one day. There is going to be something new. It could be good, it could be bad. And he's saying what you have right now will not be able to bear it. Like the old you won't be able to handle what's going to happen. He's like, and I've given you a way to experience the new, and it's through the practice of fasting. And it doesn't have to be, it could be new life, it could be new joy, it could be new hope. But he's saying the new is available to you, but you are simply not ready for it yet. And the way that you begin to get ready is by drawing near to me in fasting. By drawing near to him in fasting. And like I said, we talked about why. Like it is about making much of Jesus, that he would look great, that he would be made much of, not about ourselves. And that's why we say it's so important to pick something that is important and to pick something that is hard. If it was something that's easy, like what does that say about Jesus? What does that say about what you're trying to get from it? If you are really praying and saying, God, I really want to experience something that is real, What are you willing to say, hey, for a period of time, even though this isn't something bad, this is something that is good, this is something that I even love, but I'm willing to say, hey, I'm gonna spend this time, energy, and resources in saying Jesus is better and I want something that he has for me. And all the time, people get so caught up in the whys and the hows, like how they're gonna do it and what they are fasting from, right? And I wanna make this really easy for you. We are going to ask you to fast from some type of food, and you don't have to do this. This isn't mandatory. We're not gonna like show up at your house and like check to see what you're doing. But I wanna ask you a question. Do you want to see God do something new? Do you want to see God show up in a way where maybe you haven't seen him show up before? And if the answer is yes, I would say you have to try this because he's saying there is something available to you. You just need to spend some more time with me. There is some new available for you. And it's through the practice of fasting that you get it. And so we want you to choose some type of food, right? And then we want you to choose something else. Maybe it's a type of media or something that is time consuming. And that way you would take that time. Maybe every night you wake up, or before you go to bed, you like binge a show on Netflix, right? And so maybe you say, hey, I'm gonna take that time and say, hey, Jesus is better than this. I'm gonna spend that time praying and reading. Man, whatever it is for you, you have to figure out what works for you, but that we would say, take some type of food to remind us, hey, when I start feeling hungry, I need to remember that's how I should feel about God. Like I should be hungry for what he has for me, that he has something more for me. I should be sensitive to that. And that we would find something that takes up our time, that we can then devote that time back to God. You know, there's another time where he's teaching them, and this is really why we're talking about fasting. Jesus taught about it, and he says, hey, there's a wrong way to do it, and there's a right way to do it. And if it was important enough for Jesus to make that distinction, we want to make that with you as well. And in Matthew chapter 6, it says, and when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by our Father who is in secret, and that your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Man, if I was gonna sum that up for you, what he's saying is don't make this fast about yourself, right? This isn't a way for you to say, hey, look what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm not eating this. Look how great I am. That's exactly what these religious people are doing. They are trying to make themselves look great through the practice of fasting. He says, no, he's do it in secret. And that he's not saying like, don't tell anyone ever about it. Like you don't have to carry what you fasted from to the grave. Like it'd be great to have some encouragement and some people to support you. Maybe you're fasting from the same thing with someone else so you can encourage each other. But he's saying, hey, it's not about me, right? He's saying, don't make it about yourself. Because it is about God. And he's saying the people who make it about themselves get their reward. Their reward is that other people think they're spiritual, but they don't get anything from God in that. It says that the Father who sees you fasting will see you and reward you for that. And I'm telling you guys, I believe that reward is whatever the thing that you're seeking from him for. Maybe it's a hope for something going on in your life right now. Maybe it's an unanswered prayer that you've been praying for and you just have not seen any change in your life. And God's saying, hey, if you would just seek me in this time, I have a reward for you, waiting for you in this moment. Man, and earlier we talked about John the Baptist. You know, his disciples were asking questions about fasting, and in a different area, he was asked a question about it, and I love his response because it's saying the same thing. In John chapter 3, it says, they came to John and said to him, Rabbi, the man that was with you on the other side of the Jordan, the one you testified about, look, he is baptizing, and everyone is going to him. So basically what's happening here is Jesus is going around, Jesus is healing people, Jesus is baptizing people, and John's disciples are getting worried. They're like, people are gonna start following that guy and they're not gonna follow us anymore. John, what are we gonna do about this? This is John's response. He says, a person can only receive what is given them from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said, I am not the Messiah, but am sent ahead of him. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it is now complete. He must become greater, and I must become less. In this parable he's teaching, John is the friend, right? Like, he's not trying to make it about himself. He's saying, no, hey, I'm here for the groom, right? Like, this is the groom's day, and it's not about me. And it would have been really easy for John to make it about himself. He was a big deal. He was the guy that baptizes Jesus, right? He had his following, and that's what makes it hard. It's easy to make it about ourselves because making ourselves look great feels great. Like making ourselves seem more spiritual, making ourselves seem maybe better than we actually are feels great because people look at us and say, man, look how awesome they are. Maybe it's doing things your way, trying to be right all of the time, just trying to make things about yourself in every way. And I'm not sure what that is for you, but John's response is he must become greater. I must become less. He deserves more praise. I deserve less praise. He deserves more of my time. I deserve less of my time about me. Man, and students, I want you to see this. It's not a question about something being good or bad, or right or wrong. It's simply evaluating our lives through the lens of, are we making much of Jesus or are we making much of ourselves? Does he look great or do we look great? As we fast, God reveals the behaviors that make us look more like him and show others his love. As we fast, God shows us. He begins to reveal to us to make us look more like him and show others his love. So I have a question for you. Man, what does God need to reveal to you? About your relationships, about how you spend your time, how you talk to people. If you are wanting 2021 to be different and you are wanting to walk into next year saying, God did something, my question to you is, what are you willing to do about it? Are you willing to say, I'm going to make him greater? I must become less. He has to be the most important in my life. Andrew Murray, a pastor and author, says it like this: fasting helps express, deepen, and confirm the resolution that we are ready to sacrifice anything, even ourselves, to attain what we seek for the kingdom. And he uses the word sacrifice, and this is where it goes back to, we are willing to sacrifice because he was sacrificed for us. There is no ask that is too big when we have a God that sent his only son to die on a cross for us. And you're saying like, man, but I really like Netflix. I have to do some more TikTok videos. Really like tacos. When you weigh that against the Son, it does not stand up. In just a moment, we're gonna give you a time to think and reflect about how you're going to fast. And we're gonna be passing out some papers and some pens for you guys because we want you to think about it. We want you to write it down, and we want you to just have a moment where you make a commitment and come up to the front of the stage. And we have a box right here for you to put your piece of paper in. And like I said, we're saying we're following Jesus' guidelines. Don't sign your name. Like we're not trying to track it or do anything. This is something for you to say, hey, I'm going to make Jesus great over this next month, and pray that God might do something by giving this up. And we want you to put that in here. And then if you were with us last year, we had these bracelets. They say still hangry. So if you have the ones from last year, this one's a little bit different. And so we want you to pick one of these and wear this for the next 21 days, starting Monday, to remind you why you're doing this. What are you praying for? What is God going to do? What do you need God to show up in your life about? So I'm going to pray, and when I get done, we want you guys to think, to reflect, write on those cards, and then you can bring them up. But pray with me right now. God, we come to you today, Lord. We are so thankful that, God, that you care.